I think it's safe to say that 2020 changed all of us, even coming into 2021. We're still dealing with the ramifications of everything that happened last year. And yeah, I'm talking about the pandemic. I don't know if YouTube removes videos or just demonetizes them. I don't really care about making money on YouTube. Fuck, I'm a small child. I don't even have like 100,000 subs, so I can't even be monetized, so fuck it, yeah. Today we're talking about the pandemic, and specifically we're talking about my personal experience with certain games that I just can't play or experience the same way because I've lived through a pandemic. And maybe as you're watching this or towards the end, leave a comment down below of a game that you can't play the same anymore because of everything you've gone through this year. And I don't know, maybe we can use this as some sort of coping mechanism or some shit. Anyways, I'm Pliskin, and today we're talking about different games that I can't play the same ever since experiencing the COVID pandemic. Now, it's very funny how Resident Evil 3 Remake came out towards March, which was the point where all of this shit was just starting. No one really knew what was going on or what the plan was. You had all this panic buying and people staying in their apartments for weeks on end, kind of like Jill Valentine. Now, of course, she stayed alone in her apartment because Umbrella was watching over her, but then there's still parallels there to all of us, and at least me, who sat in their apartment, worried about everything going to shit around them, and then looking outside my window and actually seeing shit go to shit. People arguing over or fighting over toilet paper. You had the Black Lives Matter movements, which was quote unquote mostly peaceful, meaning that neighborhoods got completely ransacked. I mean, later on now we even have like the Capitol building being raided, so you have people on all sorts of different walks of life, on all different sorts of the spectrum, just going apeshit. And when I played Resident Evil 3, initially, I was like, oh haha, Jill's kind of like waiting in there, oh this is kind of creepy, zombie apocalypse maybe? But now when I play Resident Evil 3, it just brings me back to when I was staying in my apartment and I was scared and confused and everything was really going to shit for the first time and we weren't used to that yet. And now I don't even really see zombies when I'm playing through it. The zombies kind of feel more like a metaphor for just the hordes of idiots that we've all had to deal with in one way or another, that storm the Capitol building, that tear down businesses, that kill each other over toilet paper, that rob each other, that go crazy. Like, they're just literal zombies that storm the streets and bring chaos in a time where everything's always so difficult. Of course, you also have the parallel of an infection or a virus going around. In Resident Evil 3, of course, it's the T virus, and, well, we have COVID. And I don't know, like, I can't play this and be like, oh yeah, fantasy zombie survival game anymore. It's just kind of like, this is kind of what it feels like when COVID started. This is kind of what it felt like to just go out into the world and everything is different, everything's gone to shit, and feeling like your back is just completely up against the wall. So because of that, I'm mentioning Resident Evil 3 here. Now, if you spoke to me a few years ago, I would describe the scenario in Dishonored, a plague-driven city where rats bring in this terrible disease that has everyone react sort of in a way of like how Ebola kind of makes blood come out of your eyes and ears. Like, they're living through that and everything's like terrible, and you have to figure out government conspiracies about this like pandemic and all the damage it's causing. I would have described it as a complete power fantasy, and I would have been like, yeah, it would be so cool to have everything go to shit and then have to try to survive and take down the bad guys. But now that I'm actually living through a pandemic, it hits different. Like, going through the city streets, seeing people cower away from each other in fear, seeing the certain infected ones walk around and be completely isolated. Like that one mission, the flooded district, where it's completely the worst. Having the whole government conspiracy there mirror how everyone is kind of suspicious. Oh, did this thing originate in China? Is this an inside job? What's going on? Shady politicians, political instability, like, I've lived through that, so now when I play Dishonored, I don't so much feel like, oh yeah, this is a power fantasy where everything's gone to shit and I can just, rise to the occasion. Nah. I'm not stalking through the streets in a mask like Corvo, taking down like corrupt politicians. I'm just trying to survive with my family my friends, my girlfriend, and I'm constantly worried about the people I love as well as myself when I'm doing something as simple as going to the gym and I see guys that I would initially or originally go up to and talk to. Now it's kind of like, Jesus, am I putting my family at risk? Like, will my grandma die if I go and chill out with these guys at the gym because I catch something and bring it to her? Like, it's just changed everything. And the way, like, they wear masks again in the game if shit goes bad enough, and especially the way you find people in Dunwall, the city in Dishonored, just trying to get by, that help you if you help them, that used to be shopkeepers or personal assistants or art dealers that are now just scrounging for food or forced into prostitution, and all the unrest that comes from these people not having a source of income. It just hits me different because it feels so real, because and I'm sure most of you guys watching have experienced this, unless you're a kid seeing this later on in the future. At which I wonder if this is going to be like some sort of historical research piece or whatever. But anyways, Dishonored just hits so different now because I know what it's like to live somewhere where quarantines and pandemic are an actual thing. Like, I used to think the people at Lady Boyle's party, oh yeah, they're shitheads because they're having a party while other people are suffering from this disease. But it's like, a lot of people do that actually, kind of. Like, everyone's just trying to get by during this pandemic, and if they can have get-togethers, they do it. Most of the time, a lot of people aren't, like, careful, and that's what leads to the spread of this virus even more. But, like, I don't know, just the way I see things, the way I approach Dishonored ethically has really changed ever since COVID, and it's no longer the power fantasy that I once saw it as. Recently, I started playing the 2 Infamous games, like the originals with Cole McGrath. I never played the one that came out on PlayStation 4. And these games used to be my ultimate power fantasy as a kid. Like, I played nothing but Infamous between the ages of like 10 to 12. And I didn't touch them for many years, and I decided to pick them up because, what the hell? This seemed really cool back in the day, so why don't I give it a try right here, right now, and see if it's all that it was cracked up to be. And the first thing I realized was, damn, this, a lot of things are seeming familiar. Like, I have footage here for the second Infamous because I'm planning on making a bigger video about that, but just know I'm also talking about the first one. In both Infamouses, you play as a superpowered individual within a quarantined little city that's blocked off because of this mysterious type of radiation, and some people are getting sick, some people are getting superpowers, everything's just thrown out the window in terms of making sense, and you have all these weird little gangs and groups from all different ends of the political spectrum vying for power. Everyone is scared, no one knows who to rely on. There's like large protests against police, there's large protests for police. Everyone is divided, and you're just kind of given the option to either help these people or take advantage of their misfortunes, like be a superhero or be a supervillain. And while originally this was just a supervillain, superhero like fantasy for me, now when I play it I'm like, oh yeah, the militia in the second game reminds me of, you know, some of the right-wing extremism we've seen over the past year, whereas some of the Ravengers in the first game remind me of left-wing extremism. And it's just, yeah, that kind of stuff happens when you have quarantined areas and cities. When people get scared, they go towards these two different ends, these two extremes, and things get violent, things get confusing, and everyone's just kind of nervous, and the government just is extremely detached, and it's kind of like an everyone for everyone's self, even if there are police there. So when I picked up Infamous, I have a lot more to say about it, but for the sake of this video, yeah, it's just hit me different because I kind of know what it's like to be like again. I'm a broken record with quarantine and shit like that. Anyways, if you want to hear me talk about Infamous more or review it, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but just keep an eye out on the future because I do plan to say more about these games. When I first played Phantom Pain, there was no way I could ever understand the confusion or horror of what happened on the quarantine platform during their second outbreak of the Wolbachia mutation, or the parasites as they call it in the game there. However, now there's a lot about this scene and this mission in particular that really hits me different. And it's weird because Metal Gear Solid 5 is a game that I've played consistently since 2015, and even throughout 2020 I never really thought about this mission or really touched it at all. But recently I played through it and I don't know, I got emotional. Like, I thought about it in the sense of, you know, the confusion that they feel. Like, we all understand that confusion of thinking that, oh yeah, things are getting better, you know, there's a vaccine now, or there's this, or cases are going down, but then all of a sudden they go up again, or all of a sudden there's a new strain, and we don't know where it came from, or how to really deal with it, and the only thing we can do is just face it head on. And now when I play this mission and I put myself in Venom Snake's shoes, I actually can put myself in Venom Snake's shoes, being uncertain, but just trying to get through this either way. And then thinking about everything that he has to go through later on in this mission, taking out everyone that's looking up to him and trusting him, killing his own men to stop the spread of this infection. Like, I never understood the weight of that decision until now. I always saw this as another dramatic set piece in a Hideo Kojima game, but now I think about it like this. As someone who's been quarantined, because every time I travel somewhere, at least if they're taking the virus seriously, they make you quarantine. So as someone who's been locked up in quarantine, and as someone who's known people who have quarantined and has had family funerals of people that have died during this pandemic, it's just kind of like, I don't see this so much as Venom Snake shooting faceless soldiers. I think of it like this. If I was one of those soldiers and I had that disease and there was no way out of that nightmare, would I let Venom Snake shoot me? Would I try to get out and be like, fuck it, and cause the virus to spread? Would I prefer to be lit on fire? It's just insane. And vice versa, if I was Venom Snake and I was in there with my friends, or God forbid my family, would I have the strength to kill them? To, like, for example, if I was in a crazy situation like this where I could prevent something like COVID, but it was the people closest to me that had it, would I? Would I have the strength to do that? And yeah, I understand this is getting pretty grim, but at the same time, I just really want to convey how gaming post-2020 and gaming post-COVID-19 has just changed the way that I feel that my generation who has grown up playing games where quarantine, pandemic, and putting people down and stopping a virus at all costs never really meant much, but now it does. It's a whole new experience. It's a whole new set of eyes that we see these games through, and sometimes I'd say it almost ruins the experience. Now, I still love Metal Gear Solid 5, just like I still love Dishonored, and I still love, well, I don't know if I love Infamous yet. I'm still awakening that repressed or forgotten love of Infamous, but I still love Resident Evil. Like, I still love these games and I still enjoy to play them, but there's an aura of sadness that I get when I play through parts like this, because I understand what that feels like. I don't know, have you guys experienced this? Am I being over dramatic? Like, let me know. Like I said, maybe we can use the comments as a coping mechanism or something. Anyways, I know this is like a grim video, but I feel like I had to make it, because it's a big change in my life and a big change in how I approach video games, and seeing that this channel is all about me and my experiences with video games and occasionally guns, it would be the perfect fit, especially since all of you watching again most likely understand exactly where I'm coming from. So with that, I just want to say, stay safe. I give my best wishes, all my prayers to you, your family, your friends, and I hope that you're making the best out of this time. Some of you probably have it really good, some of you might have it really bad. Either way, I hope that we all pull through this, we all stay smart, and I hope that we're all there for the next video. Until then, I'll see you. This has been Pluskin, over and out.